I understand. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, we're live, and ladies, if they go to the Rockies Reality Facebook page, you should be able to share from there. And we go. Yep, go ahead, Robin. We can get started with the intro. Thank you.
This is Rocky with Rocky's Reality, and you're listening to Mo City Woman Radio. Music, relationships, life, black culture.
Or should I just say culture?
Right, all that pretty much. More music, educating and entertaining, more black businesses, just more. More me just being me. Sometimes it might get a little 7-Eleven like Beyonce. You can follow Rocky's Reality on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rocky's Reality is now 2 full hours of unfiltered and unapologetic conversation.
Hey, ladies. Welcome. Ooh, woo. We fine. Every time I see black women on the screen, I'll be like, "Ooh, we fine." Yes. All shapes and shades, baby. Welcome, ladies. Welcome.
I mean, we all trying to keep up with Lauren and Rocky, but yes.
Girl, Lauren is over here looking like Vanity Fair, okay? Right? Trust and understand, this was thrown on in the car. Literally, I'm on I-94 like.
But you did it. You did it.
God is good. God is good. Y'all literally just made it to the hotel like 20 minutes ago. So I'm grateful though. And they have this nice little light here, so I didn't have to set up my ring light. So I'm good. So welcome to Rocky's Reality. We're gonna have some heavy conversation. So y'all get ready. Now, if y'all want to play, I'm talking to the viewers and the listeners. If y'all came to play, then y'all might want to log off and go to TMZ or something. That we're not playing tonight. We're having some serious conversation about politics. Let me put this disclaimer out here that we are not endorsing any candidates. We might touch on a few, give our objective and professional opinions about them, but we are not endorsing anyone. It is solely for the purposes of illustrating what's happening in the political landscape today. And I really hope that no, not I hope, I know you will learn something today. I brought these 4 ladies on because they are political pundits, savants, or whatever you want to call it, activists, advocates, and I really feel like they represent what we need in our community, the knowledge, the talent, and I just hope again that I know this is going to be a fruitful conversation. And those who are viewing, please post any questions that you have for our panel because they are an excellent body of ladies. I'm going to start with introducing Miss Danielle Atkins, who, by the way, everyone, we're going to, I'm going to throw a little shade on Danielle because she is in Hawaii right now. You know, she is living it up.
You can throw all the shade, and I got these palm trees to shade me. I got this beautiful sunset. I'll just absorb it. But yeah, I am.
That is awesome. That is such an opportunity, Danielle, to be there with your family. I know your children are loving it.
Yes. I mean, only grown adults can be as grateful as they need to be. But yes, they're enjoying it as much as children can. It is a blessing. It is an honor to take this time. I just, I'm using this time to see how we can give this to more Black women. Yes. More Black women deserve the break and the time to just breathe and put down the load for a little bit because we have been carrying it for a long time.
Are you actually putting down the load, though, Danielle? Are you actually putting down the load?
Listen, but it's the load is next to the beach now, so there's that.
I love it. So, welcome to Danielle Atkinson, is the founding director of Mothering Justice, which is a statewide organization working to improve the lives of Michigan families by equipping the next generation of mother activists. Atkinson, Danielle, you have extensive experience as a church-based electoral and community organizer. Love it. So, you've been in the trenches.
I've been doing it for a minute. I've been doing it for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, y'all should be thanking Danielle. You're welcome. To those of you who are not aware, we need to thank Danielle.
Yeah.
And then I have Nicole Atkins.
Yeah.
Now I got Danielle Atkinson and Nicole.
Let's talk about that a little. Years, at least 10 at a minimum, people would confuse me and Danielle. Now, let me say that again. Now, take a look at her. Beautiful, flawless skin, doing all the things, got that good Jamaican ancestry, all that. Look at me. My folks down from Louisiana. I wear my hair different ways, different shade, different tone, but yet and still, people will always interchange us. So
Folks don't pay attention. Don't pay attention. You know what? I was just saying that yesterday, how I don't even know why I even bother to send emails with detailed instructions sometimes. Because how many of us have experience where you have put out a very detailed email? I done broken down in paragraphs and everything.
My whole
and
life.
somebody replies to the email. Well, what did I just? Yeah. So but Atkins and Atkinson.
No.
Danielle and Nicole don't sound alike.
Or look alike.
No. No.
So we're gonna make the distinction today, but two of you ladies are fighting for the same cause. So that's what really matters. So we are gonna make sure we make that distinction today, Nicole. So when I inboxed Nicole, she was like, "Well, I don't really have a title," and I said, "Well, okay. Well, what do you want me to say? I understand we don't like to get boxed in." So
Yeah, I'm amongst ladies who are comfortable being on the stage and saying what they say. All three of them have very strong opinions, have very well-rounded opinions and perspective, and so I generally let the folks who do that, and I generally like fade to black and be the cheerleader behind them, because it's not my thing. And so when people send me emails and say, "Hey, you're an activist. You're an activist," I'm like, no,
you don't like that.
I don't. It makes me uncomfortable, but that's my own stuff. Working through it.
No. But I understand. I get it because we do sometimes fall victim to other people's classification of us.
Yes, absolutely.
And I do believe in defining yourself.
Yes,
Because people always want to put you in something, but it's like I'm not just one thing.
absolutely.
So I'm not even going to read your bio. Well, I am going to say you are passionate about wellness and leadership development, especially for Black women of color.
Yes.
You're into spirituality, culture, and health.
Yes.
And you've had an experience with cancer and depression.
Yes.
Have shaped you into a transformation strategist. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Because that's awesome. But what is your affiliation as far as politics, or do you even want to?
So, thank you for not reading that bio because it makes me uncomfortable. But my current, well-known 9 to 5 is American Federation of Teachers, Michigan. And so I've been with them since 2011. My previous history, I worked for the party. I worked for Congressman Levin, Sandy Levin, the daddy, not the son. So that tells you a little bit about how old I am.
Carl Levin? Are you talking about Carl Levin?
Sandy, his brother. Carl was a senator.
You're taking me back to my childhood there.
Yeah. So, so did that and did a lot of partisan stuff, did progressive stuff. And so I tried to move away from it. And every time I try to move away from it, it pulls you back. It's like the mafia.
It's like what was it, Al Pacino? What was that? What was it, Carlito's Way? Every time I try to get back, they pull me back in, right?
Yeah.
Well, that means that obviously means that you're supposed to be there then, Nicole. I mean,
that or I don't learn my lessons the first time.
That's okay, but I am so glad that you are here.
Yes.
So are you an educator?
I am an educator. And no, I work for a teachers union. I came to American Federation of Teachers by way of the political side. Again, I work for the Democratic Party. Back when Howard Dean was DNC chair, and there was a 50-state strategy, and they gave some funds to AFT. I'm saying the Michigan Democratic Party back then. And so that funded my position as a base vote organizer. I worked for the chair of the Wayne County Commission at the time. It was Jewel Ware. Jewel Ware still on the east side doing what Jewel Ware does. And
Girl,
so
snatching back. You was really woo.
I'm telling on myself. I'm telling on myself.
Y'all Google these names. Those who are listening, Google
Yeah.
these names.
And you can blame Nancy Quarles, current county commissioner in District 17, who got me into this because we were church members. And she invited me to an NAACP meeting in the basement of Northland. Okay, I'm really telling on myself for a meeting, and just invited me, and they were reinvigorating the chapter, the branch, NAACP branch, and my name was on a list to be the assistant secretary, and I didn't know. And the name, a piece of paper was getting signed around, and I happened to receive it. And somebody asked me to sign it, and I said, "Yeah." And my name was listed as a slate of candidates, and I was like, "What?" Fast forward, here I am.
Okay.
So blame Nancy Quarles, y'all.
We don't blame. Okay, shout out to Sharon Davis who was watching. Is that your whose cousin is? I'm like, who's your cousin? We all cousins. You know how we do. You know how your cousins do. I was just teasing my husband about this couple at the gas station. I was like, look at your cousins over there. I was like, they look like your cousins from on your daddy's side.
Yeah, that's my cousin.
Okay, and then I'm coming next to another member of Mothering Justice, Tamika Ramsey. You already know you one of my favorite boo things, Tamika, with your tea with Tamika. And Tamika was actually on when I started this show, I did not really want to venture into politics because I know my mouth is I have an issue with tact, but I always wanted to make sure that I was educating my audience and making sure they were aware of things that could improve their community. So of course, I had to pull politics into that because a lot of us don't realize that so many things, our quality of life,
yes,
is linked to politics, whether we like it or not. And a lot of us don't like the messiness of it, but we do need to be aware of the fundamentals. So that's why I had the show. I think Tamika, was it we did the importance of voting?
Yes.
When you were on. So Tamika, you're also the founder of Ramsey Associates.
Ramsey and Associates. Consulting firm, yes. And I am the co-director of Michigan Voices, a nonpartisan civic engagement organization.
Okay. And then also you didn't you just get elected to something on Oakland County? It's for the Jackson order.
I was appointed to the oh my goodness, to the Transportation Authority. So, you know, in Pontiac, my mother used to ride the bus to work. She used to catch the bus from our housing project on the east side to downtown. And, you know, the buses got scrapped. So then you have to catch a ride to downtown to get to Detroit. So buses in Pontiac only go to Detroit. And it hinders the quality of life for so many people. And,
right.
And so when I was asked to be a part of that, I'm like, I'm gonna go to jail, but okay, I can, because my mouth is equally as loose and ratchet at times, but I use it to help for the betterment of my people.
Yeah, absolutely, we do. We do. We mean well. We mean well.
For the most
so
part.
That's why I appreciate people like Lauren who can rein us in at times when we get a little, you know. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate Lauren. We had a conversation earlier today, and I'm like, okay, Lauren. So bless her Taurus. Are you a Taurus, Lauren? I think your birthday. I was like, bless her patient Taurus heart for dealing with this crazy. So,
side out.
You said what?
The no nonsense side comes out when needed.
Yes, absolutely. So, and I love Lauren, even though she's a Spartan. You know, this is just
green.
You know, I'm a Wolverine. I'm just surrounded by Spartans. But Lauren, no, and I don't know what pieces you want me to highlight from your bio, but Lauren does a plethora of things and has been a behind the scenes person for a while, making a lot of moves. Also one of the founding members of YAB. Lauren, remind me again, what's YAB stand for?
It stands for Young, Ambitious, and Beautiful. So I co-founded it with two peers from Michigan State, but we co-founded that in 2012. And at the time, I think I was just getting into the foray of politics, but wanted to find a way to be able to highlight and support women of color who were doing startups in the business realm. So just a way men passion is just kind of been able to blend with politics as well, which you see how, again, politics is linked to every fabric of our life as well.
Yeah. Yep, we don't realize it. And I remember, I think rolling out, we covered a few things. So for YAB, so Lauren and but I remember meeting Lauren at the opening of Motor City Woman Studios. And I was just struck by Lauren from the very beginning because, I mean, of course, she's just well versed and, I mean, just knows her shit. And I'm like, okay. So I have been pretty much stalking Lauren since like 2017. But, like last year we were trying to connect and we really couldn't figure out, what would be the best show. And I'm like, this just shows that with patience and perseverance is what happens. Because now this is what was obviously meant to be. So, Lauren, you are also, please forgive me if you can. I'm trying to find it in your bio. If you can't help me out, you've been involved with Planned Parenthood, NAACP, ACLU, and also the Michigan Action Party. Forgive me if I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah, so those are actually all partner organizations.
Okay.
Mothering Justice and AFT and Michigan Voice. So shout out to all of the women on here because they're all partner organizations of America Votes, Michigan political director for. And it's an entire progressive hub nationally as well as specifically statewide where we sit. But the Progressive Hub actually helps provide coordination and strategic planning for partner programs, which include legislative accountability and policy, and also electoral election protection and voting rights advocacy. And then there's also a program planning component. So really helped me to be able to do my job.
I love it. And I love it how because we spoke about that, how we all have our roles. We all play our roles. And it's good when we can all collaborate and recognize that everyone has their specific role. And I like how you said election protection, because I want to kind of get into that. I'm a little leery about absentee ballots. I've been hearing some things about some, like in West Virginia and New York, about some tampering with absentee ballots already. My husband and I, we got our absentee ballots, and my mother has voted back absentee for years. But I'm wondering, and this is kind of a question for all you ladies, because we know there's been a lot of tampering going on. And so I'm concerned, do you all think that people should still vote via absentee ballot? We know the elderly, that's a feasible option for them, but and here's another thing. With the coronavirus, we know that the mail has been running slower.
Yes.
I mean, just in general. So I'm wondering if absentee ballots are going to get in on time, and also if there's going to be some type of manipulation of them. So what are you all thoughts on that? And I'll start with Lauren, and then you all ladies can chime in as well. Thank you.
So, one, I respect your transparency on saying how you felt about absentee voting, because, one thing that has to be recognized is there's a cultural component to this, a racial and cultural component to this. And I am someone who works in politics, and I am not typically an absentee voter. There's that's culturally us being able, as Black voters, to see our ballot go in. I think that there's almost a mental play that goes into that as a piece of voter suppression as well. But that being said, as absentee voting being a means, a primary means mainly for this election due to COVID-19, I think it's important, one, I guess on our side of things, working in politics, is important to make voters feel comfortable with absentee voting, but also still put out messaging that aligns with people still voting in person. Now, we are grateful for our top tier leadership being that of Governor, Secretary of State, and Attorney General, thanks to 2018, being able to have them in leadership. Now, like Georgia, Kentucky, yeah, they should be worried about voter suppression. The lines were extremely too long, and there were even people who work in politics that I know that voted early that still had issues and vote in person. So that being said, it's understandable to feel apprehensive. I would say for a voter for you in Michigan, you wouldn't need to feel that apprehension due to anything relative to tampering or repression. But I can understand where someone would, I guess I can say I can understand or empathize where someone would feel that way in another state. I still think that people should find organizations that work on electoral or voting advocacy work. I think that's a comfort zone, especially if they have Black leadership or leadership of color that can help you with the process of absentee voting, because I don't feel like it should be something that should be taken away at all. I feel like that's almost helping them to suppress the vote. But have organizations that are, push for civic engagement, then those are organizations that you can almost rely on a sense to be a support to you. And there are plenty of organizations that are even doing that through candidacy work or civic engagement work in general that are trying to push to support specific voters, that being mostly that of Black voters. So I don't want to eliminate absentee voting at all from the conversation, but I do think we have to have honest conversations, and that's many of us work in politics, which typically, although you're seeing our faces, it's more of a predominantly white liberal space, that also have to be comfortable with having that conversation about supporting demographics that are uncomfortable.
Right. I just don't want to chance it. So when we say civic and certain organizations, Lauren, let's name a couple, just one or two that people can look to help them. What would you suggest?
NAACP, ACLU.
Okay.
League of
Women Voters. Guidance from those organizations. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Black PAC, Collective PAC, or candidate specific, they're still, putting awareness out there. You can still rely on When We All Vote. They're putting a lot of awareness out there. Rock the Vote are putting a lot out there and tools out there to support several different voters. But those are some that support specific demographics that also are having kind of the same feelings of apprehension.
The only thing that I would add to that, and it's not to shade any of those national organizations, is that sometimes they don't have a grasp of what's happening on the ground. And I'm not going to name any names, but there's some that you mentioned that I support. I've written checks to, I've done some work for, volunteered for, but they're a little off. So here's an example. I was on a call the other day, and these folks do good work. And so they're supporting a particular Wayne County prosecutor, right? And their language was just a little off, right? Because we know we have prosecutors in Michigan. Well, they talked about DAs, but they were doing a call specifically for Detroit. That's a small thing.
This is in New York though.
And that's my point. And so I caution that sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect when you talk about national organizations and them kind of dropping in to do work. And I know Tamika is nodding her head because she knows very well what happens when national organizations drop in the state and don't really have the relationships and the language that they should have.
Or understand the dynamics, right? Understand the dynamics of this state. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I point. I think the ones I were naming, I know have the monetary resources, but I also do agree that there are several, we talk about this all the time through work. There are several organizations that come in. There are some that sit in the middle, I could say, like for myself, that try to balance that out to make sure that the community partner organizations are the ones that, are getting some of these resources to be able to push, vote by mail conversations or programs that support uplifting that. So there are some on the ground that are doing it too. Several of our partner organizations are that are also pushing to support vote by mail. So I guess it depends on what resources would we need to alleviate that apprehension, I guess to say.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think
because I have my, yeah.
for relationship building. So if you trust an organization that's talking to you when there's no election going, and listening to you, taking your feedback and doing something with it, like creating policy, then when it's election time, you're going to lean to that organization. So Mother and Justice does that. Like Danielle has created policy for mama conversations with people in the community who have issues, and then when it's time to vote, they are looking to Mother and Justice to direct them. And so it's important that we have grassroots organizations in our communities that people can talk to on non-presidential election years,
Right.
because
Right.
also our local elections are just as important. You know what I'm saying? When they was moving the Detroit trash from 1 day to 2 day, you would have thought they was saying they was going to put puppies in the street and run them over. People were pissed, right? And it's like, so you need to vote for people who gonna make sure your trash
Exactly.
gets up every week and not every other week.
Yes. Now, Tamika, that is one of the things I have to say that I appreciate as living in the burbs now, that I can put my bulk items out on any, every trash pickup. I don't have to wait to the third Tuesday of the fourth month of the millennium lunar year and all of that crap. Those are services that are essential to our community. So Danielle, did you want to add something?
Yeah, for two things. One, what you just said, that's political, right? That's political. Why is it that there's a tax base in the suburbs to support bulk pickup every week, right? And those are the connections that we have to make with our people, that it's not, you're not undeserving of good service, right? You are deserving of. Why are the money you're paying dearly in taxes? Why don't you have the services that you deserve? Just like you said at the beginning, everything in our lives is a political question. Yes. And then I just also wanted to go back to voting, absentee. I am with Lauren and many other people, and you, that voting in person is a part of my voting spirit. It's a part of my experience. It's a part of my lineage. It's a part of my values, right? Like I am going in there and I'm voting for all of the people, and I'm walking into the booth for all the people that couldn't. But we have to put that same energy and understanding into however we can cast our ballot. And so if people feel comfortable going in, how do we make them the safest possible going in? This election was the second time in my life that I voted absentee, and I've never missed an election since I was 18. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that bad. It was really comfortable to be at home with my ballot. There's always somebody or something that I wasn't familiar with. When I go into the ballot, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I should have known this. And I work in elections all the time, right? So I was able to let me just look this up. Let me take the few extra minutes. So it's unfamiliar, but it's easy. It's comfortable. And I know that the bigger point is that my ballot gets cast, right? Mm-hmm. So I live in Royal Oak. So I got my absentee ballot from the city clerk. I filled it out, and I didn't want to put it in the mail. I walked it back to City Hall and put it in there myself. So
that's the option.
Yeah,
that is an option. More comfortable with that option, because my husband is like, he's like, no, he was like, I'm glad you did that, but we're going to the polls. So I was like, well, I got our absentee. And shout out to Southfield City Clerk, Sharika Hawkins. I got my absentee ballot at the end of June, I want to say. And I was planning to fill it out, but my husband was like, I want to go to, I think for us, especially as Black people, it's like, yeah, we're not taking the lazy way out. I'm going to go to the polls. And then especially now that I'm hearing about some of the issues with it, and I just don't, especially with, like I said, again, the mail is moving so slow now. I think like you, Danielle, I'm just going to walk mine in. I'll probably end up just going and voting, because knowing my hubby, he's like, nope, let's just go and put ours in. But I do want to encourage people to make sure, because I've been like you sometimes, Danielle, where I've been voting, I'm like, shit, I don't even know who this is, Lord. And I don't feel comfortable voting for someone I don't even recognize their name. And that's taught me, before I get to the ballot box, I need to be going online and looking people up. Like, we live in a Google age where you can Google someone. You know, it's not that hard. You don't have to go to the library anymore. I mean, you can, but you know, those resources are out there. So I appreciate that. So in a couple of our comments, shout out to Jacqueline McClinton, and your cousin Sharon said she's taking hers. She's like, both of them are like, we're taking ours in. And Rochelle Drake wants to know, can I change my mind about voting by absentee?
So I learned this. My friend learned this the hard way and called me like we was about to go fight some clerk, but it was her mistake. So she did absentee. And then she the day of, she was like, I don't trust these people. Let me go vote. But she didn't take her absentee ballot. She couldn't find it. So it took 2 hours because the clerk has to verify that you already didn't vote.
Oh,
And people change their minds. They need to take their absentee ballot with them to the polls.
okay. I need to find mine.
Yes.
Oh, dang it. Okay. I think I still have mine at home, because once my husband said that and I started hearing stuff, I was like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna do this, but I didn't throw them away. I have them put up somewhere. So thank you. So we need to take our absentee ballots and say, so to Rochelle, if you've already received yours in the mail, or anyone, take it with you to say, yes, I did request an absentee ballot, but I changed my mind.
Yes, you can also go to the Michigan Voter Information Center and be able to track your ballot and your application, like in the clerk's
Online, go online.
Yes.
Okay.
So you should be able to track it from when the clerk sends it out to when you get it, and then when you send it back.
Okay. I know they have barcodes. They say they have barcodes on them and all of that to track them. Okay. Okay. All right. I think I'm gonna still go in person though. I'm like my granddaddy. I need to see it and feel it.
And you can take your ballot on election day to the poll and just hand it to the clerk.
Oh, the one that I got from the absentee. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Good to know. Okay. So we do have in Michigan, there are primaries all across the nation. So if you are not in Michigan, please check online for your upcoming primary. I don't know if you all know of primaries coming up in other states, but in Michigan, August 4th is our primary. And we have some major stuff going on the ballot. Oh, Lord. I had to take a breath because it's a lot of. But I want to go back to, I want to first ask Lauren, a couple weeks ago, the Supreme Court handed down a decision about the Electoral College, pretty much saying that those electors, they need to go by what the popular vote in their state dictates, that they just can't be willy-nilly. Am I understanding what that decision meant? Can we explore that, what that Supreme Court decision means?
So I think there's a couple of things, because there also were a couple of other Supreme Court decisions, and you and I talked about that and what this actually really means, like diving in deeper. So there were other Supreme Court decisions, including that of DACA, including that of support protecting LGBTQ rights. And
DACA, all of us don't know what DACA is who are listening.
So it was basically the Dreamers Defense Act.
Is that the Native American, tied to the Native American land?
So there was another Supreme Court decision.
Oh.
The Dreamers Act.
But thank you, Nicole. Right, because we get used to our acronyms. Thank you.
No, this is great. So the Dreamers Act is supporting immigrants.
Okay.
We usually say the Dreamers. That's who they're referring to.
Okay, right.
And then what you're referring to is the Keystone Pipeline, as far as it relates to Native American.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
So all of these are things that have been going on for a while, even prior to 2016. I think the more important thing is to have a conversation about why these decisions are being made now, all of a sudden, because technically we are not in the majority in the Supreme Court. Chief Justice is the deciding factor on several of these decisions.
And when you say we,
who asked? Nicole asked that?
Yeah, I said, you said we are not in the majority. And so So again, a lot of us who are listening are not in our bubble, our little safe little bubble.
So I'm referring to that of the Democratic Party. So, and there's nothing wrong with clarification. So thank you for that, Nicole.
Hold on, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Please hold on, Ruth. Please.
Can we say progressive? I'm nonpartisan.
Okay.
Progressive.
I mean, I think, okay, let's just break this out because I think we want to first get to the point of answering your question, Racket.
Right.
So, I know there's a lot of different clarifications and things of that nature. Please put them in the chat box. But I do want to get to the point of answering your question, specifically around Supreme Court decisions. So I think the point of it is that, a lot of times when these things come out and you just read the article, yes, we're all excited. And I like to see progressive actions taking place myself. But as someone who sometimes is thinking about political strategy, I'm thinking, why is this necessarily taking place? Why are they necessarily making these decisions now? Especially when you have 45 appointees choosing to vote against things that typically hit base, that being of I'm gonna just call it a Trumpian base. It's not even really Republican, conservative. I don't know what we're seeing that at, but that base, these things, these Supreme Court decisions that are being made don't align with that base, but his appointees made it. And I think I would say I have been noticing that, the Republican Party is going to have to rethink how they're approaching their party in general. So they're going to have to make some moderate decisions to have some long-term gain from that. And I think that's something I would more so want to pay attention to rather than, the 10 minutes of media hype around a decision here or a decision there.
Okay.
The Democratic Party is getting more progressive, or we're having more progressive candidates speak up, run. There's more accountability around some more conservative or moderate Democrats. So the same thing is going to have to happen in the Republican Party. And so some of these decisions makes me think with a questionable eyebrow of what does this mean long term?
Well, Lauren, what do you think it means from the ladies? Did you want to chime in on that? And I want to come back to what Lauren thinks that it does mean for the long term. But you all chime in, please.
Yeah, I think, Lauren makes some really interesting points, and that's like a whole conversation about the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is something that I think not a lot of people are paying attention to. We talk about it a lot. Their decisions come down in the summer, and we get a lot of decisions at a time. These are cases that have gone through the courts, and it really, when it goes to the Supreme Court, it's supposed to say something about what our country is doing. It's giving a precedence to really move our country in a particular direction. And I think the larger point that I wanted to say about the case that you had brought up around the Electoral College. So the Supreme Court kind of punted it, and they're saying that states can dictate that electors who are chosen by the party, the states can decide whether or not they have to vote for the nominee, the party's nominee, or not. So so it's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things that we could unravel there, but a larger point is Electoral College, popular vote. Trump won the Electoral College. He lost the popular vote.
Right.
More people voted for Hillary Clinton than voted for Donald Trump. More people voted for Al Gore than voted for George Bush.
Right.
We are not being ruled by the person that the majority of the people in our country voted for. That is the conversation that we need to have.
Right.
Does the system that we have in effect right now truly represent us and lead us to a more democratic system? That's the conversation we need to have. This case is, there's a lot to unravel, but that's the conversation that we really need to be having as a people. And then also around representation, right? So Electoral College, you get a certain amount of votes per who lives in your state. So there's less representation for people who live in a more populated state. Where do Black folks live? So is it one man, one vote? If we believe in that, then we need to talk about how do we move to a more democratic process, which I believe is the popular vote.
Right. And I've always been confused about the electoral college because I'm like, what is the point of voting then if we're just going to have it swept away? And that kind of like at times would just, I would be, and it's so archaic. It's like over 200 years old.
That's the point.
It does not serve us any, well, it doesn't serve us. It may serve.
Never,
and that's part of, we get back to the conversation, a system that was not created to support us anyway. That's a whole other conversation. So my thing is, how can we get, and I wanted to also, Tamika, did you want to chime in?
Well, I was just gonna say, the only way we gonna get rid of the electoral college is if Democrats get elected from the electoral college and not the popular vote. The same way when a Democrat was president and he kept getting reelected, and the Republicans said, "No, we're gonna put a term limit." And then the next time there was a president, it was a Republican president, and they were upset because now this president got termed out. So it's only when it's not benefiting them will things change. Unless the people make them change it.
Yep, absolutely. I absolutely agree.
And I wanted to add into, I think the Electoral College was used as by, I guess you can say, someone's founding fathers, but as a system of a safety net. Because I guess we by definition have a democracy, but really it's more like an oligarchy that allow you to have some type of democratic semi-process. But we're gonna have a safety net because we really don't trust your decisions at the end of the day. Like I hate that, I'm a real big proponent on social studies programs, and I hate that social studies programs takes this long-winded way in 4th and 5th grade to explain the electoral college to students everywhere, when you basically just say it was the safety net tool created because we don't trust people to actually vote in the right person that should be governing a society.
Yep. Bobby Hayes Goodrum said something similar to what you're saying, Lauren. She said, well, she didn't say exactly, but she said the electoral college is some bull originally designed to give states with slaves more political power. So historically, it was, again, meant to, like you said, we're not going to trust you to vote. It's like we're giving you pseudo power in a way. Seems like we're going to make you think that you're picking it by your vote, but you're really not. That's why we're putting this in place. Sounds like, and it's like it's just continued, just like the two-party system. That's another thing that a lot of people I've heard over the past 10 years talk about, like, we're sick of this two-party system. And realistically, if someone is a Tea Party or a Green Party member, more than likely they're not going to win the popular vote because it's such a dichotomy of progressives and conservatives or Democrat and Republicans. It's always just this split, and you have to go with either side. You can't be in the middle. So do you all, I want to come back to Lauren. What do you think for the long term that decision means? What do you think they're not saying?
For the long term, as far as the Supreme Court decision, or that we're talking about?
Well, I want to come back to what the Electoral College, because I want to expand on that point where you said we need to look at what is the long term. Why are they doing this now? From your, I guess, a political, professional opinion, why do you think they're doing it now?
I mean, I honestly think that 45 ticked somebody off behind the scenes, and they're just making decisions because they're ticked off. I mean, even the decision that, Governor DeSantis, the governor of Florida, made to, behind the scenes, I guess, regarding the Republican National Convention as it relates to 45 was interesting as well. A lot of these things that you're seeing come out, especially amid the protests, when you're seeing a lot of performative politics too. I don't know really how to feel about a lot of things, because it's like, it just feels convenient. And I'm not conspiracy theory or anything like that. I'm not going down that rabbit hole, but I feel like it does feel convenient to make a lot of decisions at a time where accountability has a spotlight, or accountability has kind of a close eye to it. But I don't. I mean, so a lot of these people are staunch Republicans. I mean, I'm talking extremely conservative. So to see these decisions made in my lifetime, yeah, I was taken aback and shocked. But I think that
maybe they're seeing the light, Lauren. Maybe they're seeing the light. Maybe that's.
I mean, are we all seeing the light? Are we all? Will we be tomorrow? Is the world? But I just think that it has a long-term gain. I think a lot of these people have been doing this a long time. And everybody knows Republicans think 5 years ahead of time. That's just always been their strategy. So
20.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Nicole. It's definitely 20 to 30 years.
So Democrats aren't doing the same. Is that why we seem like Democrats are not? Because overall, it seems like Democrats have kind of, they kind of wimps in a way. It seems like people are like, Democrats need to step it up, blah, blah, blah. They don't, so they're not thinking far ahead enough, you're saying, pretty much. Is that
they are myopic. They don't think strategically far enough ahead. That is true. But conservatives walk in lockstep more than progressives walk in lockstep. So you're going to have a more diverse view of opinions, a more what it looks like convoluted process in deciding where you should go, and it's easier to just say no to everything, which is what conservatives do, than try to figure out how to meet the needs of people, which to some extent the Democrats are doing. And I just wanted to one more thing. Everyone here, we're talking about the problems with the system, and we're all very close to the system, and we see it, and we want to fix it, and we want everyone to know about it. But we have to fight on every playing field that we have an opportunity to fight on. We have to vote. We have to be in the streets. We have to organize our neighbors. We have to do all of it. So I don't want someone hearing this conversation to be like, oh, wow, that seems messed up. I don't know if my vote's going to count. I don't know this, and not vote. It is essential.
Oh, please. Yes.
And
please
I know we're largely speaking to choir because Black women are reliable voters, but we have to make sure that our people still vote. And then we have to do all of this all these other things that make the people that are elected more accountable to the values that we're talking about.
Absolutely. And yes, definitely. I don't want to convey that message not to vote. Definitely get out and vote. But I also really want to convey the message of be an educated voter, please. It's essential that you take a few minutes, the time that we're on social media or that we're, watching a TV show, we could be looking up some stuff to see what does this person's view, how does this align with how I want my lifestyle and my children's lifestyle to be, or the lifestyle for my parents, the quality of life for my parents and my family.
And let me say this, Rocky, and some of us don't have the privilege because all of us on this have some degree of privilege, right? Some of us don't have the privilege to take that time to get on Google. And when we have 30 seconds to 10 minutes to sit down, we need that for our respite, right?
Yeah.
Take care of ourselves. And so with that, I say rely on your friends. Everybody's on social media. You know what I mean? Call your friend. Now you vote how you want to, but I'm gonna say this. Plug AFT Michigan, American Federation of Teachers Michigan. Google that. We have an endorsement list. UAW has an endorsement list. Most of the folks on this call don't have an endorsement list because they're nonpartisan. But and we have to keep stating that because we want people to keep their status because they got things to do. But it's important, UAW, any union has a list, and I am going to be partial to unions because if you grew up in Michigan, you better be partial to unions because most of us went to school on unions, most of us ate our food on unions, most of us wore our Jordache on unions, and so I think that we can trust unions because unions are about making sure that folks have a decent living wage and have
Yep.
dignity at work, right? And
Yep.
so I personally think that you can rely on unions. You pick one. It's a bunch of them. Pick
Yep.
one who, and look at their endorsement list. AFL-CIO, Michigan AFL-CIO.
Ask me, I think is another one.
Google, but AFL-CIO is the umbrella, and everybody is underneath that, with the exception of a few. And so I would encourage you, if you don't have time, I know your uncle used to work at UAW. I know your auntie never worked at UAW.
Somebody worked at the Big Three.
They did, and they still get the mailings because my daddy get it. So rely on those mailings, those UAW mailings, because guess what? We all don't have the time, and a lot of us live in a bubble, a progressive political bubble, and we take a lot of things, for granted. But it's folks who, doing janitorial jobs. It's folks who, working at McDonald's who just don't have the wherewithal to figure it out, right? And so I just want us to be aware of that. When we're, kind of doing our finger at folks that they need to get educated to vote. And so it's just an ongoing education process. And so I don't use social media as well as I could, but generally during election season, I give my 2 cents. I don't do a whole lot of back and forth because, I'm not going back and forth with you. Y'all know the rest. To make you laugh because you know what I'm talking about.
Living my best life.
Okay. So, but I will put out, what I think in terms of elected folks or whatever links. And so I just wanted to put that into the conversation.
Okay. So I want to come back to accountability. Yeah. And because I think a lot of times politicians don't have that, or they deflect it sometimes. And I was listening to, and Robin, if we can get this clip ready, because I wanted to get Lauren's feedback on this before, you have to go, Lauren. Victoria Burton Harris is running for Wayne County prosecutor, and she had a conversation on WDET with Stephen Henderson about her candidacy and what she's going to do different than Kim Worthy. So I wanted to, and someone said, look at the PACs as well. Okay, thank you, Marcia. If we could play that clip, I wanted to get you all's feedback on, she's stating some specific things that she is going to address if she's elected. And she has coined herself as a progressive candidate, that she is going to be a progressive prosecutor, that she wants to look at being less punitive, look at addressing mental health and substance abuse issues. So it sounds like she wants to do more of a holistic approach to prosecution rather just than, prosecuting people for punishment measures. So Robin, can we play that clip? Because Stephen Henderson asked her specifically, what are you going to do different? So I just want us to listen to the clip and then get your feedback on what she's saying as far as the feasibility of what she's stating.
I would build a culture that's focused on seeking justice for victims and ensuring that that justice is equal. I would certainly be open to community scrutiny and feedback and paying close attention to racial disparities and prioritizing the needs of victims and their families. I would build a staff that reflects the diversity of the community that the office serves. I would require my assistant prosecutors to complete implicit bias training. I would maintain and publish regular statistics about prosecution and include racial information at all stages. I would commit to publicly reporting any significant racial disparities. I would end cash bail for low-level nonviolent offenses, including some felony offenses, as we've seen across the country in other jurisdictions. I would certainly expand our diversion programs and get rid of this pay-to-play system, as well as the criteria that you have to be a first-time offender in order to qualify for many of them.
For diversion,
Okay, so sounds, and then she was saying some other things as far as eliminating, expunging marijuana convictions. She wants to look into restorative justice. And she was like, stop, her quote, she said, stop accepting surface level language from our leaders so we can get to the heart of the issue. We allow our leaders to play with semantics. She's like, request the receipts.
Facts.
So what is your feedback on what she stated?
Well, if I can start, I live in.
That was just a portion. I'm sorry. I just want to let everyone know that's, if you all want to hear the full interview, it's on WDET's website. This was just a small portion of it.
Yeah. So disclaimer: I live in Oakland County, so that's not for me to speak on about who you should or shouldn't vote. But I will say that that particular candidate has been endorsed by a lot of progressive folk some grassroots and some national folk like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. That's all I'll say about that. But as it relates to the accountability piece, I think that it's huge, right? And she's absolutely right in what she said. We don't request receipts, and it's pretty easy, right? But again, it's about our capacity. And I think people don't give enough credence to having a level of capacity in terms of taking the time to just Google somebody's name. Because, baby, it'll come right up. Mm-hmm. And so we don't do that. And we don't request receipts. And we are very much into charismatic politics. We are very much into hearing a good speech. We are very much into all these things. But we don't really dig into what it really is. So here's the thing that's not really popular, right? I love Barack Obama. I really do. I love what he stood for. I love him and Michelle forever, forever. But my homeboy Obama didn't do right by us as it relates to education. He didn't do right by us as it relates to immigration. We don't like to talk about that, but that's very real, right? And that's a level of accountability, right? And so we can have folks closer to us that we all know that are Black elected officials that, you know, need to be held accountable in there.
Right. Lauren, did you want to chime in? Because I like how she was saying she's going to keep track of and report statistics. So I was like, she's already stating that I'm going to be accountable, and this is how I'm going to be accountable.
So I think one, I want a disclaimer that this is not an endorsement of any, given a generic response. So do want to disclaimer that. But what I will say is candidates like that of Victoria, I think, are very refreshing. Just as a candidate alone. Again, it's not endorsement, but I'm just saying that it's very refreshing to see people who really are bringing back the advocacy and passion component of being an elected official.
Yeah.
That 2016 birthed some realities of the fact that we actually, and by we in this case, I'm not speaking about Democrats, because I'm not speaking about that blue ceiling that we seem to get pigeonholed to. I'm speaking about Black people. When I say we, or Black identified, or anyone of the African diaspora, you know, we actually have a lot of power in our vote. And sometimes when you're working behind the scenes, you see how much they need our vote. I do mean party, but you know, it's so interesting because it seems like it birthed this conversation about us no longer being monolithic, or treated as if we're a monolith. And what candidates like Victoria, or any progressive candidate or a self-identified progressive candidate, is really showing that, you know, there's variations within the party, but there's also variations within the Black community as well. And I actually think that's something that we need. I mean, here you have, okay, let's just go ahead and level the playing field with that particular race in Wayne County. You have 2 Black women. So you can already strip away the race component. You can already strip away the partisan component. And you can actually look at 2 individuals that have 2 different platforms. And a lot of times, sometimes when we're looking at Detroit races, and this is just me trying to find a nice way to say this, it becomes a little bit more of a popularity contest based on sometimes name recognition, or a certain level of endorsements.
Absolutely.
What I with some of the newer candidates is that they actually have more balanced endorsements as well, because who's to say that the endorsements should come from someone that you're deeming the king and queen of politics in a certain city? There are several community-based organizations that might be endorsed that I might have a lot more respect for. And I think that this happening amid all of the protests and civil unrest that is taking place, and these 2 pandemics that we have, I think the timing aligns as well for a lot of more even more progressive candidates to come out. I mean, the ones that I've seen come out of 17, 18, meaning 2017 and 2018, and even 2019, some of them really have revived my spirit as to why I love what I do. And I wait to see again what conversations that these candidates bring and what dialogue and what interest they bring, because a lot of times with progressive candidates brings a new voting base as well, and I feel like that's something we don't talk about. And I would love to see that dive in deeper too, because sometimes that can bring a wave of individuals that you didn't tap into, that your, go-to candidate or type of candidate couldn't tap into. And I love it. I think it's a new day, and I think that it needs to happen. And, I know we have other too, even in Oakland County, and I think considering recent situations have happened that made national news around the young Black student at high school, I think brings a whole other conversation to the suburban prostitutes. So I think it's exciting, and I think it's refreshing. And I think the things that she touched on weren't necessarily to hype herself up. It was just general conversation about accountability in general that you should want to do regardless of the candidate is.
Right. Absolutely. So, Lauren, do you got a couple minutes? Because I wanted to get Tamika's input, but I wanted to ask you one last question. You got a couple more minutes to hang out with us? Okay, Tamika or Danielle, did you all want to chime in?
Oh, sure. I was just wanted to tie that back into this conversation, back into what you were saying about having a choice between Democrat and Republican. We do, as Black people, have a lot of power. We are the margin of victory in so many races that we really need to yield and harness that power for the change that we want to see. This is an example of an opportunity where we can really vote our values, and you can just look at what is going on. Again, I also live in Oakland County, so this is not a race I'll be voting in, but are you being served by the status quo? If you're not, let's talk about that. What needs to change? What do you need? Is locking more people up helping you? Is not having restorative practices that keeps mamas at home, is that serving you? And I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be like I'm endorsing someone. I'm legitimately asking the question, are you being served? If you're not, then it's time to look at the reasons why. There are systems in other states where you can yield your margin of victory without being a ballot spoiler. So in New York, they have a process called fusion, where you can vote for a candidate on a different line. So let's say Hillary Clinton was running. You can vote for her as a Democrat, but you can also vote for her as a Working Families Party. And if the Working Families Party get enough people to vote for Hillary Clinton on their line, they can go to Hillary Clinton and be like, you know what? We got you here. And now we have a list. Okay. So this is what we want in our first term. Or we're going to tell our people to do something else. And if we want something like that, how do we get to a more sophisticated space? Also, if you don't have fusion, the Democrats have a candidate, the Republicans have a candidate. I'm not saying you should not vote. I'm not saying not vote for a particular person. I'm saying you should ask questions. You should demand that they answer your question. If they have a plan. If they have a plan, you need to be shouting that from a rooftop. You need to be talking about that plan and how it's going to impact your community. But if they don't have a plan, don't tell me that they're just going to change things. And you don't know who I'm talking about right now, because I got somebody in my head. You might think I got somebody else in my head. You've got to have the receipts. You've got to have the plan. You've got to have the what are they going to do for your community that's going to be different.
Right. Tamika, did you want to chime in? And then I wanted to ask one last question for Lauren. I wanted to get her input on.
Well, I just wanted to say accountability is like me giving you my debit card and asking you to go to the store and then not asking you for receipts, not asking you for my debit card back, not looking at my bank statement, just trusting you to do whatever in the hell you want to do with my money. We elect people and then we just hand them the keys, we hand them the bank account, and we don't ask for follow-up questions. Look, I ask my own damn kids when I send them to the store where my receipt, because I don't know if you done bought something with my money. And if I do that to my kids, why wouldn't I do that with somebody I elected? When we elect you, we have hired you, so we can act. It's like a performance review. When you're reelected, it is a performance review. How you doing your job? We so quick to say, I got them in there, I don't want to make them look bad. They make their own selves look bad. If they're not doing what the hell they supposed to do, we don't make them look bad by asking them questions. We don't make them look bad by bringing attention to the shit that they did or didn't do that they said that they was going to do. I'm telling you, I elected you, and I'd be the first one to be like, I put your ass in there, I vote you out. And I will not go every door in the city of Pontiac and say, don't vote for her ass. And I know people know who I'm talking about. So I just think like we need to make sure that if our quality of life isn't good because somebody is in office and they don't care about us, they don't care if our trashes get picked up, they don't care if our snow is being plowed, they just don't care. They just trying to get reelected, then we need to give them a performance review. And that's exactly what an election is a performance review. I've been so happy that we're not just talking about, the incumbents are here, so we can't do nothing with them. These progressives, they are saying, to hell with that. If you're not doing what you said you was going to do, we going to run against you. And that has been the most refreshing thing that I have seen in my lifetime with the Democratic Party. And I favor their values, but I be looking at them sideways too most of the time. Pontiac was under emergency management from a Democratic governor, honey.
I mean, and let's be clear. I look at Democrats sideways too, because y'all not exactly doing everything you're supposed to do either. But it's kind of like I'm picking the lesser of two evils or the better of two goods at some point.
It's the values. If you lead with your values, because I can't do the best of two evils because it's still evil and it makes me feel a certain way. But if you have my values in line, if you are doing things that my values say this is the person that is going to look out for you and help your family and your Black sons, then I'm going with my values. But if you tell me the lesser of two evils, I ain't got nothing for you.
Well, I guess that's what I said, the better of the two, the best of the two goods, more so than the two evils. So I wanted to
sorry, Rocky. I just want to say it's also about who do the people you trust have access to. The person that you are voting for, maybe you don't want to have a beer with them. I'm sorry. They're not the coolest person in the world. And maybe they don't have the best plan, but the people you trust say, I can work with that. We that's the one that we have access to. That's the one where we can do something with.
Right.
Who we have their ear. If that's happening, then we can work with that. You're not marrying this person. This is not a marriage.
Right.
This is a different kind of relationship. And yes, if they're in office, we need to hold them accountable. But do the people you trust, do the unions, do the community groups, do the activists say, I can work with this one. I can do something here. We can get some change here.
Okay. Love it. So I wanted to ask, describe some of the nuances you ladies experience. Let's get candid here. Nicole, no, I'm about to go there. She looking like, describe some, and I want Lawrence. I'll start with Lauren. Describe some of the nuances you experience as Black women in advocacy, activism, and politics. What are some things specific to you that you have to be aware of as a Black woman navigating through this space? And I'll start with Lauren, and we can just, everyone else chime in, please.
And some ladies on the call might know my feelings already. So, but sometimes in this space, it's a very lonely feeling. And I think it was actually touching on some really good points about accountability, because it was starting to relate into lobbying, and then it was starting to relate into almost political relational networking, thinking about who you have to work with, because it also, that's a conversation about who has a seat at this, magical table that we've created. I don't even know how I feel about saying a seat at the table anymore, honestly. Which has kind of been more of a recent feeling, because who decided that predominantly white people, that of cisgender heterosexual? So I want to redefine that as well. But unfortunately, currently in the climate we're in of politics, and really have always historically been in, Black people, especially that of Black women, but we'll say in general, Black people have kind of got pigeonholed to the same type of positions in politics, have got pigeonholed to the same type of opportunities, resources, etc. So a lot of roles that I have been in, I've kind of been the only one at several organizations. I don't really know what it's like to work in a predominantly Black space, which is just sad. And a lot of times it's for organizations that are what some people would deem as the grass top organizations of politics. I've worked in the environmental space. All of the space I've worked in had a lot of money. And I came from the fundraising side before being a political director. I was a fundraising director, both on campaigns and for several C4 organizations, which C4 is just relative to having that lobbying component versus, being more on the nonprofit side. So for myself, I'm someone that's not going to give you fake. I'm nobody's token. I can tell you that for sure. I'm extremely vocal, but sometimes you also feel like your race is not necessarily seen the way it should be. And I've been in space. I've only been in one space where it was me and another Black woman at the same organization.
Wow.
And we were in a meeting one time, and the other Black woman was expressing her experience as it relates to some internal racism within the organization. And basically by, white colleagues, her feelings were basically told that they were invalid to some degree. And, I'm someone, it's either 0 to 100. There's no in between as it relates to anger. So I was off. And I got to where I had to basically get extremely vocal to the point of high level anger. And then after that, I was told by a white colleague that, I finally understand, what the issue is, or what you were saying. So I basically had to speak up for another Black woman because her feelings aren't valid, but we work at the same organization. But it doesn't matter who said it.
Right, exactly.
The reason I bring up that scenario, again, it wasn't to call anyone out or anything of that nature, but I bring it up because that's the same thing that happens within us as Black women working within different organizations. Sometimes I feel like I have to speak up for other Black-led organizations, which typically sometimes can be organizations that may have less resources financially, or are pulled into less strategy meetings around politics, or may have less relationships with certain elected officials. But you set the system up that way, so it would be that way. And
right.
It is a difficulty, I would say, but it's not going to stop me from putting on, and making sure they know they got a real Black one. So, it just unfortunate because again, there's still that loneliness, I guess, as far as maneuvering sometimes through political conversations. I don't always necessarily have to go to certain events. And I think when you start out as a Black woman in politics, depending on what level you start on, there's a lot of people who start on an organizing level. I didn't necessarily start on that level. So I had to kind of network and have go to certain events that I didn't necessarily want to go to. Aim out there. So I could skip certain levels to get to certain positions. otherwise they weren't going to, because in politics, a lot of positions are had by the relationships you have. So you just kind of put yourself in a certain position. It's just like, oh yeah, I want to recommend so-and-so or so-and-so. And a lot of times that's white men and women who are put in those positions to those opportunities. So you have to work even harder to make sure you're in certain rooms or have certain relationships with people to leverage your career. And I did what I had to do, but that doesn't mean that sometimes it's not lonely when you have to, like, there's affinity bias and there's conversations about going up north or going, and don't get me wrong, I'm very diverse with the activities I do, okay? But sometimes I would like to have more cultural relation to conversations that, again, can enhance your experience. So.
Yep. Oh, well, I'm sorry, Lauren, you blanked out for that. What you said, enhance your experience, and you, what was that last part?
In your role, overall, or just enhance it as this,
right?
I mean, aspects of ours, but this is also our careers, what we choose to wake up and go to and get paid for every day. So, you sometimes have, these are the nuances that come with blending the role, but blending it as a Black woman.
Yes. Yep. Whew. Child. Ooh. So Lauren, I know you, if you could hop off at any time, I appreciate you joining us. Ladies, do you want to please chime in? What is it like, again, with you having to show up in these spaces and represent?
I'll say that to Lauren's point, and I'm not trying to be ageist or like, talk down sloping, but I feel like there was oftentimes where I was the only person, right? The only Black person, the youngest person, right? And I still not super confident in spaces, but definitely didn't have the confidence that I had. I also think, to Lauren's point, there are lots of folks who get put on trajectories and tracks, and all of us don't get put on those same trajectories and tracks. And there are some of us who maybe get put on trajectories and tracks and don't realize it. There are those of us who fall off the track once we've been put on the track, either because someone pushes us off the track or we push ourselves off the track and we're not allowed to get back on. I think there are a lot of different variables about being in spaces. I think that now is a unique time to show up as your full self, where before you weren't allowed to show up as your full self and you felt the need to fit into a certain box. And I don't think we have enough time to really delve into it. But when I first met Danielle, because truth be told, I was her husband's friend first. Right. And so I was friends with Frank, and I was side-eyeing Danielle because I was like, who is this? She walk around here and she, and then they had a baby. And then I was like, I guess I can't talk trash about Danielle no more to her husband. And so then I felt some kind of way about Danielle showing up with her baby. And I was like, why she showing up? And why she and he? Because I'm a Gen Xer, right? And Gen Xers were taught you show up, you talk a certain way, you look a certain way. And here this Danielle was coming like, doing me. And I had to grow into that, right? I had to be like, you know what? While I met her, she's showing up to be her authentic self. And so I
think we've suffered a lot. I'm sorry, right quick, Nicole. We suffer from respectability politics a lot of times. You got to behave a certain way.
Yes.
That's what we were taught. Yep.
And you don't.
You better sit up straight. Shake.
All of that. And so, and that's why I've come to love Danielle, because me and Danielle disagree. We hadn't been through it, right? We'll disagree. But Danielle shows up as her authentic self, and you cannot help but to respect that, right? And I think our friendship is always evolving, right? We have respect for each other as Black women, as human beings. And I think we have to do that as a whole with Black women. And I think we have to give each other grace and don't be concerned about what white folks say and how white folks do, but be concerned about how we do and how we interact with each other, because that's most important. And oftentimes, and I feel like I'm rambling, but oftentimes we show up in spaces, particularly in this work, with our trauma, right? Everybody shows up in spaces with their trauma. And oftentimes this is a space, progressive work particularly grassroots work, is a space where those of us with a lot of trauma can hide, because it's okay to be angry in those spaces.
Yep.
You can be angry in those spaces and get away with it. And we hide behind that. And it's not healthy. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
Right?
And your work keeps you busy, so you don't focus on your trauma.
It doesn't, right?
Your
and
work keeps you busy.
And you always got a reason to be mad. But the reality is, there is some righteous indignation in the work we do, but some of that is just your trauma that you got to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a difference between some of the work we do. Some of us do more grassroots politics, and some of us do like more electoral politics, and that's the world in which I come from. But I have an understanding of both, and understand that, both spaces can be toxic spaces, regardless if they're predominantly white or if they're predominantly Black. And so I just wanted to lift that up. Like, hurt is hurt, regardless of what space you're in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I am in this space with multiple degrees because I felt like I had to be worthy to be in this space. I am a workaholic, and I don't like, I'm changing. Like my grandson, it took me 25. It took me until my oldest son had a child. Like none of my kids even, because I'm like, I got to work even more to take care of them. But it's my son having a baby, and my grandson, like yesterday he came over and it was 6:00 and I was working, and he kept pushing the computer down. And my son, my 8-year-old, was like, can we go for a walk? And I'm like, let me stop. So it, we have to, like, Black women have always felt like we got to be worthy. We have to be educated. We got to be the first ones to get there, the last ones to leave. Like,
girl.
The kids, I don't talk about my kids. I'm here to work, right? We have, like, that's how we have been ingrained and taught. Like I tell people, my father, old school Mississippi. There were several times that I was really sick. I have a hereditary blood disease, and my doctor would call me and say, you need to get to the hospital. My daddy said, no, you better finish your shift. Right? That was my daddy. Right. And so I think like Black women are very conscious of that. And now, like, it's been the last couple of years. Like I came through this as a social worker. Like I've always been like ill politics, because it's just like politicians in Pontiac have really never shown up for poor Black kids like myself the way that I think they have. So I never had a really good picture of politics, but I need social change. And as Danielle and Lauren said, like, politics is everything. I needed to make sure that a pregnant 16-year-old girl could get resources and not have to know somebody to get help for her and her baby. And so that's how I came up to this. To this day, like I still have issues. So my hair is locked. So when I'm going places, like, my hair is usually up. But when I want to seem safe, I wear my hair down. Right. I'm very conscious about what I wear, like my clothes. I used to code switch a lot, but now I do not. So I just be going the bump off. I be using a lot of N-words because I can. But it's just like I felt like I had to fit in. I had to be who they wanted me to be. And it wasn't until recently that it's like, the world is changing, but Black women are starting to accept each other in themselves, right? Because it's like, we're not gonna do stuff if I'm doing it by myself. I need you, Rocky. I need you to be doing it so I can know it's okay. I can know I'm not alone. And so now movement of Black women who are wearing their hair natural, who are doing what they want to do. I made a post yesterday, like, if trust Black women, if you gonna hire us and let us do our damn job. But if you gonna hire me as a token, tell me first, and I need you to pay me a little bit more, right? So that I could know that I'm getting paid to be a token. But don't hire us so you can check some boxes or make sure you got some color in your pitch, your employee pitch, and you still not valuing what I'm bringing to this table. I don't have time for that shit. And Black women have done things out of necessity for so long that we are good at just about everything, but we don't like half the shit we do because we've had to do it out of necessity. Yeah. As a 41-year-old who will be 42 in less than a week, right, with a grandchild, my middle child just graduated high school. I'm to the point in my life, I'm not doing shit because it's good for the team. I want to do it now because it's good for Tamika. Right. But it takes us a while to get there. But you Black women, it's like they save Donald is it Jones in Alabama, and then this man just start flipping scripts. He ain't talking to nobody, ain't listening to the shit the Black women who elected him did. And it's like that's when we need to step up and hold people accountable.
Well, okay, Danielle, it's on you next.
No,
And
I mean, there's not much to say.
and this is the part I want to ask Danielle also. And remember I inboxed you to ask you if this was okay. I wanted to address this as a Black woman who's married to a white man. How does that play into you? You know, or has that played into you as far as being a Black woman, an activist? How was that, you know?
That's a good question.
In raising your children.
I would say no, because we blackity over here, and Frank knows what his family is, and he supports that. But I think there's nuances to that, right? My children are light skinned. A few of them could probably pass as white, and that means that first of all, they need to know their privilege. That's a conversation that we have in our
privilege is a thing. But, we have to acknowledge that. It's definitely a thing. Definitely.
What that means, what people see them as, what is their responsibility, deserved or not, you know, like you got to stand in the gap. That's period, you know? But it doesn't change who we are. You know, my children will tell you that they are Black children because that's how they identify. But yes, it's a nuanced conversation about their privilege. I am a Black woman, and I show up in this work as a Black woman, with Black parents and immigrant parents. That's my nuance and what that means for how I show up.
Your parents are. I'm sorry, your parents are from the islands, from Jamaica. Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. I love Jamaica.
Yeah. So make me want to go back. That means for. So when a conversation's about immigration, when a conversation's about immigration, you know, that changes the conversation. You know, I come into that room to change the conversation if we're not including Black immigrants, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I like how Lauren said of the African diaspora, right?
The African diaspora, you know, the Black diaspora, the African diaspora, you know, I think Tamika and Nicole both touched on it. Let's give Black women the freedom to be any kind of Black woman they want to be, and the power. And what does that mean? When when Black women allow other Black women to be the Black woman that they want to be and that they are, what does that mean for the power that they're able to release on this world?
Right.
And for what? For us, you know, when us is as big as us can be, and as bold and as free, we owe it to ourselves to let ourselves be free, and live our truest selves. And for me, that means, you know, are we making sure that all of our sisters, including our trans sisters, can live their truth, and we're fighting on their behalf as well? Does that mean that you can be a Southern Black girl, you can be a California Black girl, you can be a Detroit Black girl, you could be a Black girl from Connecticut? What does that mean? You know, what does it mean to let go of the trauma? And I wrote down when Nicole was talking, how do we not replicate the harm that was done to us on other Black women? When are
that's we tying into Tamika? Yeah, with Tamika, the conversation you had as far as why we don't get along and why there's so much infighting with us. But I mean, I want to be clear that women, period, white, Black, Asian, whatever color, I think there's an issue because of the way we're socialized as women.
I think it's important.
Black,
I'm calling us
but
to
being Black as an extra layer, though. No, Nicole, you don't agree? Okay.
Y'all haven't said y'all haven't listened to men long enough. You be quiet and listen to the conversations they have about each other. I don't like that we perpetuate this. Women got an issue with women. Yeah, some, maybe. But we are all human beings. And if you listen to men talk about men, I done heard white men talk trash about other white men. I've heard Black men talk trash about other Black men. I've heard, like, you're right, I might not have Latinx, but let's not do
But
that.
but it's different when we do it, Nicole, because we are such under a microscope. I think because Black women, we are at the lowest on the totem pole in society's
I
eyes.
agree with you. That's the perception, but we perpetuate that just by this conversation.
Yep.
Why we so acknowledge your stuff. Be accountable for your hurt and your pain and how you project out into the world. That's a very real thing. But let's not act like we the only ones. You're right.
But that's why I said, like, why I don't think it is just a Black women issue.
It's not a women issue. It's not a women issue.
It's
Men
a people
talk trash
issue
about each other. Listen, have you watched some of the videos in different countries? I want to say one of these Slavic countries where they throwing blows in the damn legislative session. How many of you have seen those videos where they're literally fighting? Have you not listened to some of these?
But there's less at stake. I'm calling us to. I'm not saying everyone doesn't do it. Everyone does it.
That's all I'm saying.
But I'm saying that there's more at stake, and I'm calling us to a higher standard.
Okay.
I'm saying that I'm saying the harm that has been done to us because we are Black women. Do not do that to other Black women because you are still dealing with your own pain. So I'm not disagreeing that everybody does it.
But you have to recognize that you have that
knowledge.
Because a lot of people.
I agree with what you're saying, Nicole, but I also agree with what Danielle is saying. It's like we are held to a higher. The stakes are higher when we're doing it to each other. I don't like to perpetuate that crabs in the barrel mentality, because a lot of times they'll say in Detroit, people don't help each other in Detroit. And that hasn't been my experience. And I've said this before, where if you don't find a person to align with to help you, then find someone else. There's always going to be someone else who's willing to help you. So I'm with you as far as we don't want to give that generalized narrative.
Let me say this, and I believe this from the depth of my being. You may come across some people who are not the kindest, but you are a reflection of the people around you. And if you find yourself always around folk who aren't this, that, and the third, and they this, that, and so and so, you better look at yourself. And that's what I'm gonna say about that.
I mean, I guess it's not a black or white conversation. My thing is it's on a spectrum, and I do agree. Like we do have some issues that we have to address. That we have to be accountable to ourselves on.
Absolutely.
Because you recognize your shit, your stuff.
That's all.
And how that spills and bleeds onto others, and it gets in the way when we are trying to advocate, because the infighting gives a message to those who we're fighting against, or the principles that we're fighting against. So,
and it's not an either or, it's a both and. How do you take responsibility and give yourself the grace? How do you do that? And it's also like it ties into an earlier question, because I wanted to name the women that have come before and after me to make it easier to be myself. So Karundi, Carol, Nicole, Nsé, all of these women have worked in progressive politics, and they have been unapologetic in a way that I remember myself being silent when I at an America Votes table years and years ago. And when I thought the strategy was wrong, and when I thought the strategy was racist, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess I just don't know. And those women put themselves on the line and their career on the line in that instance and other instances to be like, that's wrong. You know? And I'm going to hold myself accountable, but also give myself grace, right? And that's what we need to do. It's not an either or, it's a both and.
It's space for both. And I think sometimes we get like, oh, it has to be at this extreme or this extreme. And politics is definitely one of those areas where it's a lot of gray areas. Things are not, but I'm glad you are. This is what I'm excited. I'm glad we are having this conversation, because there are different perspectives, and we don't want to put out that this is just the way it is. But especially for women of color, there are some obstacles that we have to face because we are women of color. It's just a reality.
But I think when we talk about crabs in the barrel, anytime somebody says that, I said that's not their natural habitat. So how did they get in the barrel? Who put them in there? Right? And so when you have, this issue of women, whether they're Black, white, Hispanic, whatever, being pitted against each other, it's usually because somebody with some power don't want to be seen as the person who's holding all the strings. The other thing is, I had a tea with Tamika talking about Black women and, why don't we address some of the issues that we have with our mothers that created some of the issues that we now have in real life? Because we're so quick to talk about our daddy issues. We don't talk about our issues. Note to self, my mama still ain't talking to me, but I'm like,
I love my mama. I love my mama. And then you feel bad when you talk mess about your mama because it's like it's your mama. You only get one mama, right?
Not even talking mess. It's like just having a grown-up conversation about relationships and stuff. But we don't talk about that. But it's just like the Black on Black crime. We will talk about how Black women don't like each other, right? But we don't talk about how white women be cutting each other too.
Exactly. Talk about absolutely.
I have been in a meeting with two white men where I could have swore they was finna get into a fist fight, and at the end of the meeting, they was like, "Well, it was nice to meet you. Have a good day." I was like,
and they showed their ass right in front of them. But here's the thing, though, for Black women, we wouldn't have been able to show our ass like that and be okay. No. We would if y'all were in a meeting, y'all would be like, "Oh, we don't want to cut up in front of company."
Yes,
we don't want to, even though we try to be our authentic selves. That's the conundrum. I want to be my authentic self, but also I know I need to make certain connections in order to achieve what I want to achieve.
Yes, but I think sometimes we do that at a disservice to ourselves. Because I was working at this organization and I was straight Tamika from the East Side. We had a funders presentation and I showed up as a professional person. And I remember the communications director came to me and she was like, "I didn't know you could speak so well." And I didn't know whether to cuss her out or be mad at myself because I had never.
People still say that?
They do. Constantly. And so I was just like, I was like, well, I know how to act and I have several degrees, so I know how to speak. I choose to speak how I want to when I can, right? Because so many times we have to put who we are authentically on the back burner to present, to be seen as this professional person.
Right.
And I can't have my hair on the top of my head.
Right.
That's not professional, right? A lot of women, Black women, couldn't wear their hair natural for a long time because that wasn't seen as professional. We had to whitewash ourselves to be seen and to
we the only ones with laws about our hair. We the only ones with laws about our hair.
It's crazy.
We're the only one. By the way, so I want to kind of shift a little bit and ask Nicole about her experience, which, by the way, I love your bald head. That you work it so well. I love it. So I want to kind of delve into, Nicole, for you. You're a cancer survivor. Is that correct? Okay. Can we kind of talk about that a little bit? Or
sure.
Yeah, I want to give a little inspiration to others as to what you can persevere through. And whatever you want to share about that experience is up to you.
Yeah, so I will say that so I purposely shave my head now because it's pandemic and I'm not going to the barber. So I was gifted some clippers and I use them and it's just easier. And so
and
it
looks wonderful on you though. It fits you.
Yeah, it does.
It fits you.
And I will argue that people say that and it. So yes, there's things about symmetry, right? There's things about shape and what's appealing to the eye. But often people like to say, well, I couldn't. Well, because you choose not to, right? And so you have to be comfortable in the body you are in. I was never one for, I wore wigs, I wore braids, I wore locks for 7 years. But I was never one for like having synthetic hair on my head for super long periods of time because it's just something about it. It makes me feel confined. So yes, I lost my hair from chemo. And so when it grew back in a different texture and it didn't go back as full as I like it to in some areas. So I just keep it all shaven. And so that's not a big deal for me. I had a vision about what I wanted to look like as I approached 50. And as I approach 50, a year and a half from now, there's a vision of myself that I wanted to look like.
32.
No. I'm 48, and I am proud of being 48. And what we stop doing is acting like we younger than what we are.
Right, but that's my thing too. Like I'm not ashamed to say I'm 43 in my age because we still living, we still here.
And so,
right, yeah.
All of that to say, and why I feel so strongly about wellness for Black women and the work that we do, because the work that we do is particularly hard for a lot of reasons. But if you don't take care of yourself in a way, if you don't take care of yourself in the right way in this work, it will kill you. And Audre Lorde said something about, I don't know the direct quote, but something about if something, they'll kill you and say you liked it.
Yep.
And
if you don't protest or you don't say something
because we accept so many things and we don't have boundaries. And when you don't deal with the trauma, it manifests in your body. And I'm a strong believer in the year before I was diagnosed, I thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was just going to perimenopause, right? I was super stressed. I was super on edge. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, your cortisone, levels are high. So a lot of us carry weight around our midsection. Some of us, it's based on our body type, but some of it is because we're carrying stress. Some of us are bragging on Facebook that we don't sleep. We only get 3 or 4 hours of sleep and we up again and we on Facebook. So, I'm not judging, but I want us to try to do better with that, because not sleeping, not getting a proper diet, not getting enough vitamin D, not moving your body. You can talk about exercise all you want to. Moving your body. Moving your body is walking outside. Moving your body is yoga. Moving your body is dancing. Moving your body is twerking. I'm all about twerking. So
moving your body is sex.
You got to move your body. And so if you're not doing all of those things in some semblance on a regular basis, you'll die sooner than you want to. There's a reason why Black women die at higher rates and quicker than everybody else. There's a reason why Black women, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of education, have higher mortality rates for maternal. There's a reason for that. And there was a whole exhibit, I can't think of the name of the exhibit, at the Charles H. Wright Museum, that talked about Black people die at higher rates, and they're trying to figure this out regardless of your income, regardless of any of your education levels. Doesn't matter. We still die. Why is that? Because we carry this trauma, and I'm a strong believer in carrying the post-traumatic slavery trauma in our DNA.
Yep.
Now it's good and bad, right? Because, you dig into the science and it talks about that resilience, right? That's how we're here. None of us will be here if our ancestors hadn't made it across, right? So clearly we possess that DNA. But at the same time, we also live in an environment where we don't need the same level of the things that our body does to help us with stress. It's like fight or flight, right? You're excited or whatever because you had to run from an animal or you had to fend for yourself. Well, now you don't need those same levels, but you're still producing that in your body with anxiety and with not dealing with trauma and not getting your rest, right? And so we can talk about my cancer experience. I don't think I'm special, right? It's millions of women who get cancer all the time. And some of us don't live, right? And some of us do, because we make different choices.
What kind was it?
It was breast cancer. And I had a lumpectomy, and I had chemo, and I had radiation, and it lasted about a year. And technically, I'm still in treatment because I still take medication, but that's a whole nother conversation, right? But I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm because I have health care. There'll be some women that I would go in there, and they didn't have health care. They didn't have nobody sitting in there with them. They didn't have transportation. That's what made me cry. I didn't feel good some days, and I didn't have the level of energy that I wanted to, but I kept working. I was in the middle of a master's program. I too got a bunch of degrees I was in the middle of a master's program, spirituality, culture, and health. And it was divine order that I found myself in the middle of that program when I was diagnosed, because I already had a tendency to be towards the hippy dippy. Anybody who knows me knows that. But getting that master's degree in the middle of also having been diagnosed with cancer, I think helped it even more and put me more on a trajectory in terms of my wellness and my well-being.
All right. Yeah.
I advocate for Black women particularly to take care of themselves, to get, if they can, get some mental health. Talk to your sister friends, because we know science has told us that fellowship and being amongst friends helps our spirits. And moving your body, however you deem that. It doesn't have to be twisting and flipping, and just move your body. And getting some vitamin D. and try to eat reasonably. You know, I'm not gonna say how you should and shouldn't eat. I ain't gonna say be a vegan. I ain't gonna say, but eat
Right.
to fuel your body and fuel your soul.
Yeah.
And I know
And rest is so, and I know you gotta hop off, Nicole. When you said that rest, because I remember when Steve Harvey, this was a couple months back, when he said, if you a millionaire, if you want to be successful, you're not getting a whole 8 hours of sleep.
That's dumb.
And that's just garbage. I'm sorry. Dumb. And this is something that the pandemic has taught me. Before the pandemic, I had forgot I was not dreaming. Like for several months before the pandemic, I could not remember a dream if you told me you were going to give me $10 million. Since the pandemic, my rest is different. Like I am actually dreaming now, vivid dreams where I feel like I'm in the dream. And I know that's because my body is resting now, even though it has sucked to do homeschooling and all that madness. But I truly could. And then I was also having like a skin issue where I had like this rash called lichen planus. That's cleared up. So it's just so many things health-wise and just mentally too. I'm just in a better space because I've been able to rest. And I have decided since this that I'm not going to be rushing as much anymore. That I'm not going to take on as much stuff, that I am going to get some rest. And it's okay to sit on my ass sometimes and relax and just zone out and do nothing. Because before I was like, oh, I'm being lazy today. And my one friend, she had to check me. She was like, why do you say it's you being lazy? I was like, because I'm not doing nothing. I'm just laying around and I'm used to da-da-da-da. And she was like, it's not lazy. You're resting because your body needs it.
We function in a capitalistic, colonialist, patriarchal system.
Yep. You gotta go.
A very capitalistic system. You are worthy because you exist. That is it.
Mm-hmm.
That is it.
Yep. Yep. And that's what me. I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciated you, Nicole. Oh, I should have asked Lauren before she jumped off. But you all can find Lauren B. Laura on Facebook, and she's DJ Beaz on Instagram. But for you, Nicole, how can people find you? And is there anything you've got coming up you want us to be aware of? Or
I don't. This is super awkward for me. It's like, yeah, you can reach me on Instagram.
It's okay if you don't.
I'm on Instagram, Nicole J. Atkins, NIKHOL J. Atkins. I'm on Twitter, same thing, Nicole J. Atkins. I don't say a whole lot, but feel free.
Right. Well, thank you, Nicole. I appreciate your input and your perspective, ladies. I'm so excited. And thank you so much, Nicole, for chiming in. I asked Lauren, who she thought would be, and I'm so glad that you all were able to join us. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to future conversations, and I hope people have learned something today. Danielle and Tamika, is there any last words you all wanted to say? Or you know what? I want to ask this fun question. Let's do something fun. So but see you later, Nicole. Thank you so much. So I want to end with a fun question with Tamika or Danielle. Is there anything, and Tamika, you all wanted to add to what Nicole said?
I just wanted to add, I saw this on Facebook and I screenshot it because I'm like, this is my life. It says our ancestors weren't allowed to rest or make space for self-care. We honor them when we put ourselves first. We honor them when we willfully slow down. We honor when we refuse to work ourselves to death to benefit a system created to rise on our labor. And so that was from Brown Girl Self-Care.
Mm-hmm. I need to follow them. Yeah, is that a page, Brown Girl Self-Care?
Yes, it's a website, but they have a page on Facebook as well.
Yeah, I need to follow them. Yeah, because that's
And it's like, but it's my daddy all over again, old school Mississippi, who worked himself until he died. And my father died at 44 from lung cancer. And when he was in his bed, he was turning knobs like he was at work. And so when he was sick, I was pregnant with my daughter, and we had very good conversations. And he just said, "Don't become me." And then 18 years later, like, I'm my daddy. And so I'm trying to slow down. I'm trying to take a step back because everything that I'm doing for the benefit of my family. But if I'm too tired, too sick, or too agitated,
Right.
or working too much to even be able to enjoy them, then I'm doing all of this for naught. And so I'm going to take a book out of the Danielle page, and next year I'm going to sit my ass down. I am going to enjoy my son. I'm going to enjoy my grandson. You know, the oldest two, they can kick rock. But I'm going to enjoy my husband, and I am going to look at Tamika and decide what Tamika wants to do and who she wants to be, and stop being who I need to be for other people.
And no is a complete sentence. Sometimes we just like to say no. Like, no.
That's it.
And I've been practicing it with my kids. Like, no, I'm not going to explain to you. And see, that's the problem. We have gotten too used to explaining shit to people. No.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do that. No. Absolutely right. Danielle, did you want to add something?
There's nothing to add. That's it. That was the quote. That was the example. That's it.
So I want to end with something fun, ladies. So let's imagine, well, Danielle is on an island. Shit. So, so imagine you ladies are going to an island, not Hawaii, by the way.
Okay, a different island. Okay.
It's going to be a different island, somewhere like way far out that is not industrialized, like and modernized like Hawaii. What 5 items would you take with you? And it could be people too. People or
people. Then I got, don't say it can't be your family. You got to say it's not your kids, because
we love the kids though, but well, we don't necessarily have to take them everywhere. But if you want, but I mean, I know it's hard because you have 6 kids, so you would feel like you got to bring all of them, right? No, okay. Well, let's just keep it to items because we don't want people's feelings to be hurt. Let's pick 5 items.
I think I would bring I want to say my phone, but it's more because I would bring my iTunes, because music helps to release me in ways that I am just discovering now. So I would bring my iTunes. I would bring like an unlimited supply of Seagram wine coolers. Is this a PG conversation?
No, PG.
Because I may or may not bring my husband. It depends on how much he loves me. But I got needs.
You gotta bring other things.
So that's 3. I would bring books because I like to unwind, and Ratchet TV. Ratchet TV, because Real Housewives really helped me.
Right.
I'd bring a boat. I would bring an ebook that also plays music. I would bring an air conditioning unit. You see, this glow is about to be a full sweat. Okay. Okay.
What is it? What's the tip there, Danielle? Is it like 80, 90?
Yeah, it's like 80, 85, okay. And it's like 3 o'clock right now. So
okay.
I would bring a good mattress. Okay, a good mattress. And a back massager. That's what I bring.
Interesting. Okay. So I would definitely have to bring me some music because it's my life. Jesus, I would die. Y'all know I'm like a musical. I love my music.
Yeah.
I would this is hard. I would bring my journal because I gotta write, like DMX. I don't know if you all saw the verses yesterday, but DMX said write the pain, and that describes me to a T. Writing is cathartic. Hey Ivy, join us. Hey Ivy, I'm glad you were able to join us last 5 minutes. I'm glad you got on. So I would bring my music. I would bring my journal. I would bring my body butter because I'm like, my skin got to stay soft.
But the air is good on islands. You might even need it. There's enough
Okay,
moisture.
I might not need it. I might
Mhm.
not need it. Okay. I would also bring some pictures of my family
Mhm.
because I'm a pictures person. And what's my last item? It's got to be some good snack that I like. What's one of my favorite snacks? I would probably bring like a case of Vernors. I gotta
That's
have
good.
my Vernors. I gotta have my Vernors. Old school. I'm old school. Girl. So
You gotta have
I,
ice for the burners, though.
you said what? You don't like
You
Vernors?
gotta have ice for the burners. You can't have warm
I-
burners.
But I kind of like warm Vernors. I'm strange like that.
Yeah.
Like it get the belly good. It be good with the belly.
Yeah, but that's okay.
But maybe I can put it in the water to make it a little. I don't know, depending on how cold the water is. Maybe I can like find a way I can weigh it down in the water to get cold in the water. But I don't mind. I'm one of them. I don't mind. I'm old school. I love me some warm burners.
Warm burners is like a whole medicine.
Yeah.
Like if you're sick.
I mean, it's good for preventative as well.
Oh my
But
god.
it's definitely been a hangover cure for me. But I like Vernors just because. And now I do like Canada Dry too.
I do Canada Dry.
But I'm old school. D girl, I love me some Vernors. I'll never, give up my Vernors. Now that was Ivy Nicole. She is running for state rep for District 6. And I was going to have her pop on just to, Ivy Nicole Neal, by the way, she's running for state rep in District 6. So you all can look her up as well. But I think that covers like parts of the east side, and I'm not sure. It's parts of the east side but she was going to pop on just to speak with us, but we're running out of time. So Ivy knows that I support her as well, but she is a social worker, an advocate. She works with young girls. She's done a lot of work with Alternatives for Girls and Vista Maria. Oh, Ivy, right quick. Can you hear us, Ivy?
I can't hear.
Uh-oh. We can hear you. We can hear you, Ivy. Can you hear us?
I think she's typing.
Oh, because we got 2 minutes, Ivy. Ivy, can you hear us? Because I can hear you. I mean, I can hear the background noise.
I can't hear.
Oh, Lord. Well, we might have to have Ivy. I don't know. Technology is great when it works. Okay. Well, I'm going to just put the plug out there for Ivy. She's District 6. She's about, representing women, Black women. Her motto is a woman's place in the House is in the House of Representatives. So good luck to Ivy August 4th. She is on the ballot. You all go ahead, check her out. She's all about, she's a very big advocate for young women. She's done a lot of work with human trafficking victims. So she's really about advocating for, on Black women's behalf. So, but ladies, I'm gonna close, and I really appreciate you all for joining us. Tamika, you my boo thing.
Thank you. I just want to let you know I was not drinking alcohol during this whole thing. I want to let you know for you, so I could be in my right mind.
Wait a minute. When we were on the way here, I was sipping something, and my husband was like, "You got your show tonight. You need to be coherent." I'm like, "I'm gonna be coherent. Just let me drink a little something so I can calm my nerves." Jeez.
Right.
But I totally understand. So I
was frozen, and then when I came back, y'all were talking about alcohol.
You said what? You said what, Danielle?
Oh, she froze. Oh no!
So did right at the end.
Oh no! Well, at least it waited to the end.
Right. And she got a cute look on her face as she frozen. But thank you, ladies. Hopefully she can hear me. Thank you, ladies. Thank you to Lauren. It's Nicole.
Frozen and then frozen.
Is it okay?
We hear you.
Oh, Lauren, let it go. Let it go, internet. Let it go. let it go, Lord. Okay, well, we Danielle, we're gonna get ready to close. Tamika, where can people find you? Did we already do that? Where they can find you?
I'm Tamika Ramsey on Facebook, T Ramsey and Associates on Instagram and on Twitter.
Okay.
And it's T Ramsey and then N, like the letter N, Associates.
Okay. And Danielle, I know she's on Facebook as well.
Mothering Justice.
Mothering Justice.
Yep.
And Danielle, I believe she is Danielle K. Atkinson on Instagram.
Okay.
So thank you, ladies. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I'm sure this was a fruitful conversation. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Y'all make sure y'all go vote August 4th. If you are not in Michigan, please make sure you check as to when the primaries are in your states, and please make sure you research those candidates. Request those receipts, everyone.
And we do no reason absentee, so you can actually go into your clerk's office right now and vote.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I love it. Okay, thank you, Tamika. Have a good night. Take care.
Goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye.